Hi there, I'm Dr. Catherine Hubbard, and this is a short video to introduce you to one of the key theoretical frameworks in terms of online teaching and learning, which is that of the community of inquiry model. So it might surprise you to realise that there have been frameworks for online learning for really quite a long time now. So this particular model was first published in 1999. And it came out of some of the early online distance learning work that was done, very rudimentary, no fancy technology, but, mostly to things like discussion boards and forums. But it's a useful theoretical framework, and I've certainly found it useful in my own practice of thinking about three core presences that interact to create the educational experience. So the community of inquiry model says that we have three things. We have a teaching presence, which is the design and management of the learning environment in the course. So these are the conscious choices you make as an instructor as to how you're going to design a thing. So I have chosen this video to be about the community of inquiry model. I have selected that as the curriculum for this, but I've also introduced myself in this video. I've chosen to do this. You can see me rather than just an audio narration or just giving you some slides. I've made my teacher presence felt in there. So I'm kind of setting the expectations, setting the learning environment, and sharing my experiences as I go along. The theoretical framework also says so we have the teaching presence, we then have the social presence. So that's the creation of community to allow discourse and social construction of learning. So that's into the interactions between the teacher and the learners, but also between the learners in the educational setting. So actually right now, there's not very much social presence in this interaction. I'm talking to you directly as an instructor to a learner. But this video might be used in conjunction with other tools to create that social presence. So it might be used in conjunction with a discussion board. If you're watching this on YouTube, there might be some comments underneath that gives an indication of the social presence. We might introduce it into a classroom setting. We might introduce it into a discussion in a class. So there's various ways that we could maximise the social presence that isn't really here in this format right now, but using other tools, we could create that in an online environment. And then the last thing we have is the cognitive presence. So that's fundamentally the learning process, the mental effort and processes required for learning. So application of new ideas, connecting new ideas together. Fundamentally, that's the learning domain. And what the community of inquiry model says is that we have the best education experience when we can maximise for those three presences. So to maximise your cognitive presence from this video, I'm going to give you a few questions to think about with the community of inquiry model. So does this align with your experience of online teaching and learning? So think about online learning or teaching that you've done. So it might be some corporate mandatory training. It might be some online teaching that you've done. It might be that you've taken part in a fully online course. Think about how those different presences manifested themselves. Were they all there in the experience? And if one was missing, would it have been better if that presence had been there? Could you identify all three presences, or maybe you could only identify one presence in there? So have a think about the experiences you've had of online learning, either as a teacher or as a learner. How does this connect to the model? Does it ring true for you there? Another thing we can think about is just in practice, how can we maximise each presence in the online environment in practice? So that might be some of the hints and tips that I've already shown you in here. So I've given you things to think about. So I'm directing the cognitive presence more actively. I'm telling you some questions to think about to consolidate your learning. I've put this video in myself of a teaching presence, so I'm explaining my rationale so you can understand where I'm coming from and why I've picked this particular model. And then, does the model have value for designing for in-person settings as well? It's this framework that's designed for online learning, but actually I think I've found in practice that thinking about those three things, and particularly that social presence and how we use social presence to construct learning in the in-person or the online environment, has actually been quite helpful. So although it's designed for online learning, I think there's actually things we can take away from it in terms of design of our in-person classrooms. So whether we're thinking about active learning, group work, whatever it is, we could potentially apply that community of inquiry model more broadly. So that's a thing to think about as well. Does it have value in thinking about the design of other ways of teaching and learning? So that's just been a quick introduction to the community of inquiry model for you.